right, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Tonight, we're going to talk about simple swaps for a healthy holiday. Just some ideas to help us stay healthy throughout the holidays. And then we'll do some recipe ideas at the end. So when we look at or think about what kind of happens as we eat over the holidays, what research tells us is that our weight goes up. So no surprise there probably for most people, but some researchers found that weight went up from October throughout October and November and peaked 10 days after Christmas. So we kind of start this extra eating or extra calories in October, and we go all the way through into the new year. So on average, people's weight increased about 1.3 pounds during just Christmas and New Year's season. And research showed that those extra pounds you put on between Halloween and Christmas can take more than 5 months to lose. So it's not just a short-term kind of thing that happens when we start to overdo it during all these holidays that come right in a row. Not to mention, we've kind of been living through this quarantine and pandemic, and most people I talk to have found that, the extra time being at home and the probably eating and snacking a little more has resulted in some weight loss this year already. So now is a good time to try to get a handle on it and kind of think through the holidays and see how we can be a little bit healthier. So the first thing is to think about appetizers. And when we go to holiday gatherings, a lot of times we have appetizers before we even get to the main course. Now, things might be a little different this year. We might not be going to as many holiday parties, but we can still kind of think about this at our own house. Even if we're just hosting our family, kind of what are we snacking on before we even have that meal? So what's the better choice? Cheese and crackers or vegetables and dip? And the better choice here for appetizers is vegetables and dip. So having that platter of really nutrient-rich vegetables is a better choice over a big cheese board that has a lot of different cheeses that are high in saturated fat. We also want to try to include colorful vegetables like red peppers and carrots and broccoli to make sure that we're getting in a lot of vitamins and antioxidants. Especially now as we're dealing with flu season and COVID and all those sorts of things, we want to make sure that we're getting in as many vitamins and antioxidants as we can to help support our immune system. But even if we're having veggies, we want to make sure that we do our best to have a nutritious dip to dip them in. So if the dip base is sour cream or mayonnaise, you can be adding a lot of extra calories and saturated fat along with those vegetables. So doing something like Greek yogurt as the base can increase the protein and calcium while also keeping a handle on those calories and saturated fat. So at the end of the presentation, we'll do a little dip idea that's really easy, very tasty, and it uses yogurt instead of that sour cream or mayonnaise. So this illustration kind of gives you an idea of how quickly calories can add up at a holiday meal. So even if we're having a smaller gathering this year, maybe we're not seeing extended families or a lot of friends, we might still be cooking a really similar type traditional Thanksgiving or Christmas meal. And when we kind of put it all together, it can add up in calories very quickly. So we can see the candied sweet potatoes, our typical green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, our cornbread. All of these things contribute to our overall calories for just one meal. And if you see down there in the corner, the total calories for this meal is 1,473. And that might be approaching what some people have in one day, just at one meal. And we haven't even included in here appetizers and desserts. So it's just something to think about. We definitely want to enjoy all of our food, especially if it's family recipes and family tradition. But this is just kind of a way to show you how quickly it can add up. And if we're doing this multiple times throughout the holiday season or multiple days in a row with leftovers and things like that, these calories can add up quickly. You can go ahead, Carly. So we're going to kind of do some tips through the meal, just little tweaks we can make that will help our meal be a little more nutritious and maybe a little bit lower in calories. So with our turkey, if we choose white meat and remove the skin, we can save a lot in terms of calories and fat. So a 3.5 ounce portion of white meat with the skin, which is about a size of a deck of cards, is only 177 calories, 6 grams of fat, and 30 grams of protein. If we have dark meat instead, that's going to increase it to 206 calories, 10 grams of fat, and 27 grams of protein. So it's quite a difference just by choosing white meat over dark meat. We can also try to resist eating that crispy skin and save another 30 calories per serving. Stuffing is another thing that we can just tweak slightly to make a big difference. Now, to me, stuffing is kind of like meatloaf. Everybody makes their own family recipe. And so, you know, if this is your great grandma's passed down recipe that you would never change, absolutely do it the way you always would and enjoy it. But if you kind of try a new stuffing every year, there's some things you can do to make it a little more nutritious. So you can reduce the sodium by using a low sodium broth. And those are very easy to find now in stores. They're very common, so they're not something you have to search for. And you can add more chopped vegetables in order to lighten the calorie count. So you can do a half a cup of stuffing, which is about the size of an ice cream scoop, and that'll add about 195 calories to the plate. Also, stuffing can be very high in sodium. So that same serving size can be about 480 milligrams of sodium. So by trying to use that low sodium broth and add more vegetables, we can decrease both the calories and the sodium. Potatoes are a favorite, so for a lighter version of your usual mashed potatoes, you can try using lower fat milk. So instead of using whole milk or cream, you could use a lower fat like 2% or skim. Or you can replace some of the butter and milk with lower sodium chicken broth, which will even enhance the flavor. So a small tweak that you can do to your mashed potatoes. Also think about when you make a sweet potato casserole. You know, oftentimes we're putting a lot of brown sugar on top and maybe pecans and marshmallows and a lot of things that we're adding to those sweet potatoes that really increase the calories and the fat and the sugar. So even just taking your typical recipe that you would make and decreasing those items just slightly can make a big difference. So maybe instead of using what the recipe calls for brown sugar on those sweet potatoes, you cut that in half, or you cut the amount of marshmallows in half. Just little tweaks that can start to make a big difference. Green bean casserole is another one that's a holiday favorite. So you can consider as an alternative serving green bean almondine instead of the typical green bean casserole. Green bean almondine would be something simple like steaming string beans, sauteing them in some butter or olive oil, and then using slivered almonds and lemon juice on top. The classic casserole that uses the cream of mushroom soup and the crispy fried onions provides about 227 calories for a half cup serving. So making this lighter alternative, you're cutting down the calories, and you're also getting in some healthy fats with those slivered almonds. If you use olive oil instead of butter, it's kind of a lighter taste to go along with all those other strong flavors that you might be having with your other foods. Cranberries, if you make cranberries, like the ones that you buy from the Ocean Spray cranberry package that ask you to add a lot of sugar, you can use less sugar in your recipe. You can also consider adding some different spices or flavors to help enhance the sweetness without using so much sugar. So things like cinnamon and cloves, maybe some orange rind can help bring out that sweetness without using a lot of sugar. So if we make our typical cranberries, it's about 102 calories per quarter cup serving. And because those berries are so tart, most recipes call for a lot of sugar. So if we can use some different tactics to help us bring out the sweetness without sugar, that can really cut down on the calories. So dessert is another thing that we probably have more often than not during the holidays. And we, when we have leftover dessert, then sometimes we eat it for breakfast the next morning, or if we have it around the house, we're eating more than usual. So during the holidays, we can try to kind of adjust our desserts every once in a while to come up with some more nutritious alternatives. So one idea is to enjoy pears, which are in season right now. They are perfect for lots of our holiday foods, and they provide fiber, vitamin C, and lots of other flavonoids. So we're going to do a quick and easy recipe for dessert with pears. Which is something, we don't always think about in the holidays, but they're so great to have right now because they're in season. And then pumpkin is something we would typically just think of to use as pie, but there's a lot of opportunity to use pumpkin in some sweet desserts that don't have the high calorie content that a pumpkin pie would have. And pumpkin gives us so many nutrients, especially vitamins A and C, potassium, and fiber. So it's great to use in dessert recipes. But if we can kind of adjust it a little bit and not always go right for that pie, we can cut down on a lot of sugar and calories. All right, so can we see that table okay, Carly?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So the few kind of recipes that we wanted to talk through today, just for some ideas of some things to either serve for your family over the holidays or use at a holiday get-together. The first one is a vegetable dip that's using yogurt in place of any sort of sour cream or mayonnaise. So if we use Greek yogurt in place of that, we can save a lot in terms of calories, and we can also increase the protein. So just by using Greek yogurt, we're only contributing about 90 calories, but we're giving this dip 15 grams of protein. So it's a great base to use as our dip. So it's just a plain, non-fat Greek yogurt. And we put that right in the bowl, just like we would for a mayonnaise or a sour cream. This then calls for the juice of a half of a lemon. So if you have, lemons already, or you can buy the already made lemon juice, but just squeeze that right in there. And then this dip in particular calls for some garlic. So I always keep some already chopped garlic in my refrigerator. It's just easier and more handy than needing to chop up garlic all the time. But about a teaspoon you can put in there. And then some spicy mustard, or any type of mustard you like, but this will give it some good flavor. And we're going to do about a tablespoon of the spicy mustard. And this is a great recipe for kids to help with because it's really just simple measuring, simple mixing. If the kids are a little bit older, they can help with chopping the vegetables or pick out which vegetables they want to use for the dip. But this is a great way to get kids involved as well. There's also so many cute ways that you can find to set up your vegetable tray for the holidays, making it look like a turkey or making it look like a Santa or whatever. So you can really be creative to make the veggie dip look really appealing, especially for kids. So I just mixed those all together, and then I'm going to add some fresh dill. If you don't really like dill very much as an herb, you could certainly choose something else. You could do parsley if you wanted. You could do cilantro or basil. If you don't have fresh, you can also use dried. You would just decrease the amount a little bit. So I'm just going to mix that dill up in there. And the dill is really so fragrant and it smells so good. So that's just a really easy vegetable dip that you can have out. It mixes up really easily. Put it out with some colorful peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, and you have a really pretty appetizer or hors d'oeuvre to put out to snack on before our main meal. It's also a great thing if you're trying to eat a little lighter throughout the day before you're going to eat that really large meal, to have this as part of lunch to get in all those veggies or something like that. I'm just going to grab my hot chocolate then real quick. Sorry about that, I had it plugged in. So I just have some chocolate chips melted in the crock pot, and if you were on last week, we did some melted chocolate with bananas last week, but this week we're going to use pears. Like I said, pears are in season, and this dessert is really fun because it's really festive with the colors. You can use green pears, or you can use these more reddish pears, and they look really pretty. Again, the kids can help if they're older with cutting the pears. I have a pear slicer here that makes them nice and even. So you can just start with your pear slices. You can even just have this out as like a dipping station if it's just your family, to kind of do like a little fondue or dipping station after dinner. People can kind of make their own. But we have our pear slices. And then we are going to cut up some pistachios. So these are the already shelled pistachios so that you don't have to take them out of the shell. And you can give them just a rough chop on a cutting board, or you can put them into a food processor or a blender if you wanted to. But I like them a little more roughly chopped because you can see the green color a little more. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but they look nice and green if you just chop them without putting them in the food processor. So with our melted chocolate, we're just going to take a pear, dip one end in there, kind of get it all nice and dipped on that corner, and then dip it into our pistachios, kind of cover that chocolate part, and then let it sit on the plate and harden. You can put it colorful side up, makes it look really pretty and festive. And so then what we're doing is we're getting in our really nutritious pears, our fruit serving, and we're still doing a little bit of chocolate and our healthy pistachios. You could even put out some different fruits if you wanted to, or use different nuts in place of pistachios. Give people a choice or let the kids choose. But this is a really tasty. When I first did the recipe the first time, I was very unsure about how people would like it or how I would like it. But every time we make it, everybody loves it. It's really tasty. It has that kind of sweet and salty taste sensation. So it's really pretty, really tasty, and it looks nice on the plate. So that's our pears and pistachios. And then the last recipe we're going to do, if you can see it, is with pumpkin. And again, pumpkin is a really great way to add in nutrients, but sometimes with our pumpkin pie, we have a lot of calories and fat and sugar. But this is a pumpkin energy bite. So if you're the type of person that just during the holidays really loves that pumpkin flavor, and you'll have pumpkin flavored anything, this is a really good recipe to have on hand, or for the kids to do. They can certainly participate in this recipe to have out for dessert or snacks or whatever. So we just start with some oats. You can use, oatmeal that you have at home. And then we are going to add about a cup of peanut butter. And if you have an allergy, you can certainly use sun butter or something alternative to the peanut butter. And we can just start to mix that up with our oats. Then our second ingredient is going to be that half a cup of pumpkin. And what we wanted to do is get the pumpkin puree. We don't want pumpkin pie filling or anything like that. We want just that pure pumpkin puree. And so it's about a half a cup of that. You can just continue to mix that up. And we're going to want to add a little bit of sweetness. So this recipe calls for maple syrup. So I have some 100% maple syrup that we're using. You could also do honey if you would rather do honey to sweeten it. So whatever sweetener you would prefer to use is fine. And this is another thing that you can kind of use your taste buds or your family's taste buds. If you maybe don't need it to be so sweet, you could certainly decrease the amount of syrup that you choose to use. And you could always adjust it as you go. If you feel like you need to add more, you can, but it's always a good idea to start with less. And then additionally, we're going to put in some vanilla. So about a teaspoon of vanilla. And about a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. Then you could add in some add-ins if your family has some favorites. If you would like to do chocolate chips, if you would like to do raisins, if you would like to do dried cranberries, flax seeds or chia seeds would be a good addition for some nutrients. You could do coconut if your family likes coconut. So this is a great recipe to kind of work on with the kids and have them decide, what they would like to add in to their pumpkin pie energy bites. And so what we do is we just combine this all really well. And then we can roll it into our little 1 or 2 bite energy bites. So the kids will love this too. It's kind of messy and fun. So you can just roll it right into the ball. And then depending on how you like them, you can either keep them in the refrigerator or the freezer. The freezer is good if you like to just kind of pull some out every once in a while. But these are like little miniature pumpkin pie tastes. So if you really like the taste of pumpkin pie, they're great to have on hand. So there's some ideas for you, 3 good recipes to have on hand during the holidays. If you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to take them now.